1, Hantum Community Education Trust. This project comes from Colesberg in the Northern Cape. Les Osler. Another most amazing, fantastic project. Welcome, Les.
Oh no. Yeah, I'm close to heart.
Good day. Thank you very much for having me. And I'm slightly overawed. But anyway, here goes. We call the Hantum Community Education Trust. We're a rural project, 40 kilometers outside of Colesberg. And there's our campus. You can pretty well see how isolated we are. And because of the location, we had some major obstacles to overcome. Transport being one of them. You can see all our vehicles. And we started off with in an old disused building, stables, etc., etc. You've got all that information. Basically, what I want to talk about today is the impact of a project like ours. We're 21 years old this year. And we have done the most remarkable things. We stand back and say, have we really done this? Is it really possible? We have turned an entire community around. It's taken a long time, but then we believe development takes a long time. And we develop people from the cradle to the grave. And I think the essence of our project is hope. Because if there is hope, people will take responsibility for their lives. If there's an enabling environment that guides children and adults from an incredibly disadvantaged situation to a position where they can actually change their lives, they will take responsibility for their lives. And that's what we have learned. And so we've had to develop things on the parallel, almost like railway lines. The trains running simultaneously. So we have a health clinic, we have a registered community pharmacy so that we could actually dispense the medications. We have health outreach programs, we have effective parenting programs. Because we hear all these things about education and about what needs to be put into education. How do we make a difference? I've been to educational conversations. I've seen Graham at numerous of these. I've listened to what people have said, and I've thought, here we are, we've got these children. They're African, but they're not disadvantaged. I've just heard a statement that was made about it's only the African children who are disadvantaged. It appears that it's not that. It's any child who doesn't get a decent education that is basically disadvantaged. And we've taken this and we've decided that in order to develop a child, you have to develop the parents. Now, we're dealing with farm workers who have lived in a feudal system, who've never thought anything much about themselves, who've had no confidence, they're totally disempowered. And we've developed them on all sorts of levels. But the most important one, in essence, if we're going to talk about the child, is about parenting. How do you become an effective parent? So from the moment that woman is pregnant and is diagnosed at the clinic as being pregnant, she joins the prenatal effective parenting class. And that goes on for 9 months. And from there, how the child develops and workshopped on the various milestones, etc., etc. Right through until that child is 6 years old and beyond, because then they basically have to do homework and the parents have to be involved in that. Now, it all sounds, in a sense, quite trivial, but it isn't. I mean, it's incredibly important because every single step, it's no good. We can do wonderful things with children at the school. We can make them feel safe and give them quality education and do all of that. But if they're going to go home and it's going to be broken down, we're not really changing a community around. And we're not doing it in a sustainable manner. And that's the lesson that we've learned. And also it's quite fluid, because as we develop people, as we grow people, so we have to re-look at some of our programs, upscale some, put new ones in, wherever the need is. And the other thing, of course, the other big hurdle we had was human resources. We're not near a city, we're not even near a town. We have to take people who are just around us. So we've employed people, or people work for the project, earning between, I will tell you, 4,000 and 5,000 rand a month, and that's it. And so it's a stipend, always has been. And the reason for that is that people don't move away from their communities. And so all the development that happens to the staff stay in the project and stay in the community, so we don't have a turnover of staff. We don't bring people in from the outside, because 5 years down the line they say, oh, well, we're resigning. Now, who picks up the pieces at the end of the day? So you make that commitment for life, but in the school itself, and this is the most exciting part, is that we've got children from disadvantaged homes, illiterate homes. How do we get them to make meaning of language? How do we get them to be literate and numerate? Because this problem is a problem that is clearly national. And we've taken this and we've actually done baseline testing, and we have piloted programs and interventions. But we do it over a period of 4 years, slowly, systematically, with mentoring in the classrooms, and we actually then record the improved numeracy and literacy skills of these children. The Basic Concepts program is now being rolled out in the Springbok area, in a lot of the schools in the Western Cape. When Louis did his doctorate, he used us as the sort of guinea pig, I suppose. And then once that's for the foundation phase. So once we've done that, we then went on to roll out this program in 2 of the schools in the Colesberg and Noport area. The reason why we did that is that we did ours in English, and we needed to do this in Afrikaans, because we needed to somehow prove that it is not about mother tongue. It is about the quality of teaching. It is about actually laying that foundation there where you can build language and build numeracy, because if you do not have the basic concepts, if your conceptual development hasn't happened, it doesn't matter which language you get taught in. And we've proved that, because when we did the baseline testing in those other 2 mother tongue schools, grade 3, at the end of grade 3, having been part of the program, their literacy levels were those of the first term grade 1 children. And these were being taught in their mother tongue. So we realized this is where the problem is. We brought the Department of Education on board, we signed a contract with them, and we implemented it. We also did a health component. So we brought in a school nurse, and we're monitoring this quite closely, because it's part of government policy that there should be that sort of assistance. And then there isn't. And then we're showing how important it is, because we've picked up things like extraordinary sort of malnutrition. And this is not to do, there are feeding schemes, sure. But those children get fed at 10:30 in the morning, and that's the last meal they have until 10:30 the following day. They cannot concentrate in school. So we put in protein shakes, home visits and things, but that's within the township. So it's just really scratching the surface there, but it's merely for us to actually sort of just have an idea of what we can then report back to the health department and obviously the Department of Education. And then we realized that it's all very well for children to have this input up until grade 3, but if you do not develop language creatively in the intermediate phase, and that's where, from all the readings one's done, is that somehow that's a sort of stepchild within the education of the child, and write their own books. But it's a process. So the whole thing is right brain, left brain. It has to do, they do their own drafts, one draft after another, and when they eventually write their books, they self-correct. They do all the self-correction, and so it actually stays. And I mean, they've written the most amazing books. We couldn't believe it. We were completely blown away. And we do, as you can see, there's, well, not in this one, but you saw that little child with the doll.
Yeah.
Those are persona dolls. Those are dolls of various cultures. So we have Chinese dolls and Indian dolls and black dolls and white dolls and colored dolls. And we use those to deal with issues in the class. We use those to deal with things like diversity and acceptance of people's differences and so on. And then we monitor the whole process very carefully. We have what we call our musketeer class. These are children who have fetal alcohol syndrome, where we do a lot of neuro art therapy, kinetic movement, and those are also used in other classes. But it's actually written up as an academic document. And we've had numerous schools coming to us, people wanting to start something. And I'm going to be asked, is this possible? Because it looks great. And we've got everything there, sure. And thanks to Graham, one of those first buildings was because of Joint Education Trust. But you know what? If 3 farmers' wives can do it, anybody can do it. That's the point. And so you need the heart, and you need the commitment, and you need the passion, and you need the will to fight, because that's what our children need. Right? And that's what they deserve. And if we can do it there, in the middle of nowhere, it can be done almost anywhere. Thank you.
There's sort of a common emerging thread so far, and that is the less one has to do with government, sort of the better. I'm afraid that's been an overarching theme this afternoon. But there's an interesting. I just wanted to ask you. You said in the either your report or evaluation report, was it? You must remind us, you've got a library of 9,000 books as well.
Yes,
yeah, which is
and the computer set.
Quite
yes.
amazing. But just elaborate, could you, about the problems you've encountered with the Department of Education and the organised teaching profession? I'm just interested in...
I can tell you that when we actually signed this contract to do this rollout in Lowryville and in Oakwood, and the British Lottery funded that, so we actually had to have contracts, legal contracts that were signed. And they said, no, they're not going to do this. The headmaster then said, no, that's fine, we'll have a meeting, and the unions came on board. The union said, you can't make them do it. So we said, we phoned the Department of Education, and we said, listen, you've signed a contract here, I've taken legal advice on this, it's binding. You're in breach of contract. And then I said, listen, sorry, well, I'm not going to do anything, you'll just have to phone your HOD in Kimberley, which of course we couldn't get hold of, right? So, but the most wonderful thing had happened there. This was the most wonderful thing, because I went to the school and I said, right, you're not going to participate, you give me back everything. I want every manual, every set, I want the books, I want the tables, the chairs. I'm taking the health break, I'm taking everything away. That's your choice. It's disgusting, and you have no backbone, Mr. Pennells, and you smell of alcohol, which is disgusting. I said, well, I'm taking everything from here, and I'm going. 3 days later, I get the phone call. The HOD from the foundation says, Bueller, says this, kan ons praat. So I said, right, public or private? She said, very private. So I said, okay. So we met in this girl's house. It was very nice. Tell me what's happened. She said, that's absolute nonsense. 4 rogue teachers make a decision for 15 of us. We're not having it. So I said, okay, so what's your plan? She said, we want back in. So I said, right, Bueller, you go and meet with the others. I want a written thing to say we want back in. You tell me how you want back in. Okay, you take responsibility for this. Understand? And you face your headmaster, which is what they did. So they have gone on with the program. The results have been fantastic. They've done it really well. And at the beginning of this year, we wanted to test all the children, but those 4 rogue teachers wouldn't allow their children to be tested. So I said to the Department of Education, I said, I'm begging you, please, the only thing I need you to do is just tell them that those children have to be tested. Otherwise it puts all our things out of kilter. And he said, okay, I'll get back to you on Friday. And I thought, yeah. Well, he did get back to me on Friday. And he said, we have given the notice to the teachers that they will have their children tested. So these little breakthroughs, yes, but you know, one has to really fight. I mean, you know, it's like an ongoing battle, but you know, that's what we're here for, because it's this little pebble which is going to make the ripple we have.
Hilary? This is very close to my heart. I come from a rural community. I was really interested to see that you do effective parenting, what I like to call positive parenting. Because I really believe that that's
Yes.
where some of the work has started at community level. And that you include the fathers.
Yes.
But what effect has that had on the community and the parents? Is there a change in the social
Yes.
behavior?
Yes.
Are there still a lot of fetal alcohol
Yes.
syndrome and alcohol abuse? Or can you measure a change there or not?
I think we can measure a definite change. It's taken a long time, but there are still problems on certain farms. And part of the reason for that is that those particular farms, the farmers need to be bashed because they tend to treat their staff not very well, and then they leave and then we get new ones. So that's where our problem still is, that it's very difficult to stabilize that. But I will give you just one example of when I talk about empowerment. One of the women working in a house, a new manager comes onto this farm, and she's spoken to, and he's crass and rude, and he says, Lizzie, do this, and why haven't you done that? And she said, excuse me, sir, meneer, mag ek net iets sê asseblief? Ek is oud genoeg om jou ma te wees, en jy sal my met respek. And that is the huge thing. What we're getting as involving the fathers has been quite difficult, because we've actually had to have meetings and go back, come back, tell us how to do it. But the one way we've worked out, which is in a very non-threatening way for the fathers, is the children read to them. You see, the children have to read every single day, reading and reading and reading. I mean, it's just so important. And so we also want role models, because of this whole fractured society, they've got to have role models. Our empowerment, youth empowerment, is just fantastic. I mean, we've got 9 in our hospitality group at the moment who are AIDS orphans. And they have said to us, they've actually sat down and said to us, you are our only lifeline. Thank God you're here. So, you know what, that's really great to know. That right there in the middle of nowhere, because you must remember that these wonderful things that are happening in the cities, I'm so envious of, but we can't even send our children to that because there are no boarding facilities. Where do our children stay? I mean, we have mentors in Bloemfontein when we send them, or we have people who actually look after them. Because we really have to be mindful as to what young people can cope with and what they can't cope with. And that's really,
Fran?
talk forever.
Leslie,
And I have some water.
you already declared my interest in the project. I think it's utterly brilliant, and I think, thank heavens, you were on a farm in Colesberg 21 years ago. I don't think I need to ask this question, but let me at least ask it. Is there any truth that this is run by middle-class whites?
So what?
And what are the advantages and what might be the advantages of the problem?
Okay. No, it's not run by middle-class whites. It is run by a community of young black women, white women, black men, white men. Part of, I think what I'd like to see ourselves as the microcosm of what really the Rainbow Nation is about. Because we have to work together, because especially in our area, because of ourselves who are white, who've had all the advantages in terms of education, this has not happened to many of the people who initially started off as our beneficiaries, and many of them who are part of our staff now. We have 4 interns, students who are at our school, graduated, are now teaching. Well, when I say graduated, they finished schooling and they're now back with us, and they've been trained as teachers, and they're studying with a National Professional Teachers Diploma. They did their level 4 in Educare and their level 5, so they've gone up it very sort of slowly, but they're there. That's where they want to be. Some of them have got children in the school. They know the value of education, and that's really where the turnarounds come. We've had 68 children who've gone through the process, been trained in various things. We even have a final year medical student, and he was taught in a stable. And we have lots and lots
Like
of
Jesus.
Exactly. And so what we have at the end is that and of those 68, 63 are gainfully employed. Now, when that happens, it means that A, we know that the people who are listening to us, the children, because they have to take responsibility, we probably get in about 168,000 Rand a year for the project from the community, which is pretty poor, so that's pretty good. And they have to be respectful, mindful. We never have vandalism. The only reason why we have gates is to keep the donkeys out. So, you know, they own the property, they own the project. That's the thing. And no decisions are made without the community.
Fatima, I visited your project in 1996.
Yes, you did.
And whenever I hear about it, it's grown and it's very impressive. What I want to ask you is, in the summary we received, it says that the trust aims to break the cycle of poverty in the rural area. And I wanted, because there's nothing in here that speaks to the objective economic conditions in the area changing. I can see that you're obviously impacting significantly on the lives of the kids, their parents and so on. But, you know, essentially my understanding of the rural economy is that commercial farmers play a big role in that. So I can't imagine how you can affect poverty without also making interventions around their structure.
My question was following on that. I was just going to ask you, in 21 years, in 20 years, I mean, is this community, I mean, are the young people you train going to leave?
No.
So will they be gone from the community, or will they stay? And you'll suddenly, if you do suddenly have parents, if you get students who graduate now, going to start having families, they're literate, how do you see that affecting, will that affect the community, and how will it affect the dynamics and relationships between the different groups?
What we have is that a large number of the young people have come back to work in the community. So we have somebody working in the bank, somebody who's opened the hairdresser, somebody who's teaching in the schools. So